G'day, legends. Welcome to a special edition of the ISS News. I'm Anthony Meixner, and my guest this morning, coming on as the CEO of Swiss 8, Adrian. Welcome to the proverbial other side of the desk, mate.
G'day, mate. Cheers for having me.
Mate, look, I think this is a good time. I wanted to get you on. Remembrance Day is coming up. And for brevity and for clarity, I just wanted to break down this edition into three segments. I want to talk about Remembrance Day and the history. I want to talk about the current problem that is happening in Australia around Remembrance Day. And then the solution that Swiss 8's come up with. Mate, so look, can we just get rid of some of the monkeys in a cage rhetoric about what Remembrance Day is and where did the day come from?
Yeah, I mean, well, let's look at Australia to start with. At the moment, a lot of people believe it's a day of solemn remembrance, which it is. I agree with that. But a lot of people think that it needs to be this solemn, dry event where we take a minute's silence. Again, appreciate that and remember the dead, and we do. But there is a lot of the Australian kind of older generation that think that that's all it's about. And I mean, in its true history, obviously, we're recognizing the end of the war, end of World War One. In Europe, in America, in most of the Allied countries that were involved in that war, they celebrate the end of the war, or they did. That was in its origin. They were celebrating peace, the end of the war. There was no more fighting. I mean, the war they were experiencing it firsthand, and this is civilians as well, because it's a war fought in Europe, and it was real and up close to them. So the whole country, I mean, nations were celebrating the fact that the Great War was over, and they believed at the time that it was the war to end all wars. And that was in its first year. And then almost instantly, straight after that, in the decade that followed, it turned into the gap between World War One and World War Two. Armistice Day, or what we call Remembrance Day now, became, for some people, a day of protest. They used it as a day to protest against future wars, especially as we got closer to World War II. Then it became a day of protest. And I mean, over time, it was given. It always held that value of we need to pause for a moment and remember the sacrifices people made to give us this time of peace or the freedom that we have. But it has shifted, and we can go into that as we talk about where we're at the moment. But the origins are, and it always should be, a day where we reflect. Some countries that it wasn't always on the 11th, like in the UK, they chose to have their Remembrance Sunday or Remembrance Weekend, the Sunday closest to the 11th. And yeah, in Australia, we pause. Well, some of us do. We pause and remember on the 11th at 11 o'clock. But the national understanding in Australia is getting hazy, and that's something I really want to get into as to why we're doing what we're doing now, is because in Australia, we are a young country and we're forgetting what Remembrance Day stands for, the values behind it, and how we are supposed to, as a country, pause on Remembrance Day. And that I think we can break down over the next few segments.
Yeah, mate, absolutely. So just to reiterate, so Poland, I mean, and that was horrific, what they went through in the war, like everyone. That is a day, they picked Remembrance Day as effectively their freedom day. Like, this is one of their biggest celebrations of the year, the day that they become free. America, you listen to, and you pull up any news article from 1918, even the false armistice that happened just prior to that, when they thought the guns went silent. Everyone rushed out onto the streets and partied for days. The end of the war. They were celebrating that we won the war and that the war was over.
Yeah, and I guess the reason, now there's a great article. I don't know. We can probably put it in the show notes. I've got to get this dude's name right because I've got it wrong. Romain. Oh, I'm going to get it wrong again. Romain Fardi wrote an article, peer-reviewed article in 2019. Talking about Remembrance Day being the poor cousin of Australian military commemorations. And I think this is a big part of what he goes into it, and he talks about why Anzac Day is such a big day of for lack of a better word, celebration in Australia. We do take a moment's silence and we do remember people who have come and gone in service. But that is looked upon as an okay day to celebrate in Australia, where for some reason we're not allowed to celebrate Remembrance Day. And the way that Romani breaks it down is like, we weren't a developed country. We didn't have culture. We didn't have our own history. And we loved the Anzac values. And that was, as a young developing country, we could latch onto that and go, honour, integrity, mateship, larrikinism. They're things that when we look in the mirror as Aussies, we like to say that's in all of us. Therefore, that becomes part of our culture and we celebrate those values. There was no values aligned with Remembrance Day. It was like we say, celebration's a word people don't like to use, but it was a celebration of peace. It was the end of the war. And the European countries, they experienced it, whether you served in the military or not, you were rejoicing that the Great War was over. And we just missed that a little bit in Australia because, and obviously as time goes on, there's not a lot of people that have a direct descendant, or they are a direct descendant of someone who fought in that war. So with nearly 2 generations removed, and it's slowly fading. And Anzac Day is still fairly strong. I mean, the numbers are slowly dwindling. I mean, this gets complex, and we're talking about social and global political values and getting a little bit left leaning and wokish, and we're not allowed to celebrate anything around military anymore. But we still find it okay as a nation in Australia to celebrate, to have a few beers, to have a big day on Anzac Day. Remembrance Day, in some people's mind, is not the day for that. And it's the closest link that I can get is because we don't treat it the way the Europeans do, the way the Americans do, the way that, well, Polish being European as well. We don't treat it the way they do because it's not linked to our national identity.
So that's the snapshot of the history of the day. Now we look at the problem, and we sort of went into this. The situation now, or the problem, is guys that you see, the older generation, very insular. They're not looking at the problem. And I suppose the problem presents itself in a few ways. Number one is we're a younger generation. We're a younger generation of veterans. Time moves on and changes. Bob Dylan made a couple of good songs. If you can't get out of what is it? If you can't lend a hand, get out of the way. And the other one is that they can't see outside. Yes, you're supposed to commemorate and all this, but they can't look outside and see what is actually happening, and the decline in the numbers at Remembrance Day services. What are the other problems we're seeing at schools is that a lot of schools they don't even stop at the moment. And then the other one is, this is current serving from October last year when I was still in the army. Remembrance Day was marked. Everyone's like, oh, hey guys, it's 11/11. Shut the fuck up. Yep, get on with your day.
Yeah,
that's how we commiserated.
Mate, that was the first cultural kind of shock for me when I first joined the army. 2006, the first year I was in Townsville, I think 2006, whatever. I was in Townsville for my first Remembrance Day. Walking into a shop, realised it was 11 o'clock. I'm like, oh, Townsville, Garrison City, this is going to be a thing. And it's like people going about their daily lives. And this is 15 years ago now. And it's fading from then more and more and more. And I believe, and I know the younger generation of veterans, the ones that we've spoken to anyway, agree with this, that if we don't do something about it, if we don't find a way to reinvigorate, not reinvent, we're not trying to change the wheel. We're just trying to give the general public in Australia a reason to pause on Remembrance Day. And if we don't do something about it and give them a reason to do that, then it's going to be deleted from the national calendar. Anzac Day, like I said, I think it's got a few decades left in it. Then we'll probably be having this same struggle around Anzac Day. But right now, Remembrance Day, in my mind, is a day that we cannot lose from the national calendar. We almost lost it in the 80s and late 80s, early 90s. It was back then we did follow the British and have Remembrance Sunday. It almost got to the point where no one was paying attention. There wasn't a public interest in Remembrance weekend or Remembrance Sunday, and we almost lost it. And it was only because there was enough noise created by the still living veterans from World War One and World War Two that rallied and basically lobbied government, and there was enough of them that the politicians said, all right, we better listen to them, otherwise we're going to lose too many votes. And so let's keep it alive. And what they did was, I'd have to get the exact dates, but the 50th anniversary, it would have been the 50th anniversary, that they made a big song and dance about it, and they got the War Memorial to rally it and drive more media and more attention to Remembrance Day. And even then, it was 10% of the turnout in Canberra at the War Memorial. There was about 12,000 people turned out versus 120,000 for the centenary, I believe, it was the main event for Anzac Day. So we almost lost it in the late 80s, early 90s. And that was when veterans who fought in those wars were still alive. Now, to think that it's not going to happen again and we're not going to lose it today when none of those veterans are alive is ignorance. And we are. I mean, as Swiss 8, a lot of ESOs are partnering on this campaign this year, and we're trying to just inject a bit of life back in the national interest of our second biggest military day. And we're copping some heat from the old guard that want to keep it the same as they've always done it. And that's fine. And I get it's tough. Like, you don't want to teach an old dog new tricks. And if you've been doing something the same way over and over again and you're a veteran, it's hard to accept change. But I think it's selfish to think that this day is just for veterans. It's about remembering veterans. I completely get that. But unless we can motivate and inspire the entire country to get behind our military history days, what are we doing?
So the problem is that unless government and you spoke about before, the government and the War Memorial put millions behind campaigns to market the centenary of Anzac and the 50 of the World War II ending, back 1995, without injecting money in marketing and education of our younger people and getting people excited about the day, you're scared that we're going to lose the day.
100%. And I mean, the writing's on the wall. If we'll put this article up, this is the most detailed description of not just where the history of Remembrance Day, but more the direction it's heading in. The writing's on the wall and the date is there. Remembrance Day will not be remembered unless we do something about it. And that something is, all we're doing is encouraging all Australians, regardless of age, regardless of military history or service history, to pause on Remembrance Day. And I mean, I guess if you want to say we're putting a spin on it, we're just telling people to do it with their mates, to stay connected. And that, obviously, we're a mental health organisation. Anzac Day and Remembrance Day, for a veteran to do that on your own, that is dangerous. Like, that is a day you do not want to be sitting isolated, lonely in a room by yourself, dwelling on mates that you've lost overseas. That is a quick recipe for depression. So we are encouraging people, the whole country. Yes, it's a barbecue campaign. If you don't want to have a barbecue, so be it. But just get your mates together on Remembrance Day. Take a moment, pause and reflect on how good life is, and the sacrifices that it took to make life in Australia this good, and maybe have a think about the men and women that came before us and did or sacrificed so much to give us the country that we've got. Do it together, do it with mates, and hopefully if we can do this well and we can keep this campaign rolling, we can make sure that our kids and our kids' kids have a Remembrance Day on the 11th of November.
So it's about getting together with your mates. And you said we know that these days, and it's about changing the narrative, which you're doing great work in the space, that victim narrative. And I think this is quite interesting when we talk about why can't people be proud of their service? And I'm not saying glorify war. And I'm not saying when we talk about commiserations and all the other verbiage around that, no, you can't call it celebrate, you have to call it this. Can't we just teach veterans to be proud of their service? Can we teach Australians to be proud of our veterans? And we do this by getting people together. Don't be alone. We know that the whole country is affected by isolation. It's spread across every news channel, the mental effect that COVID and lockdowns are having on everybody. The same thing when you isolate veterans. So give them a day they can be proud of. Pause. Remember, it's in the messaging. Remember what's happened. Get your mates together and pass on this great day for legacy for future generations. What's the philosophy behind getting some of these footy players as well as veterans on board?
Mate, it's just that. I think where we are, unfortunately, there isn't a national sense of pride in our military. I mean, we're a small military. The Americans, like 10% of their population is a veteran. So obviously, you're only one, at the most, two people removed from a soldier or a veteran. We don't have that in Australia. So in motivating or inspiring the whole country to reinvigorate Remembrance Day is going to be tough if we do it alone. And I mean, marketing 101. The world at the moment loves sports people. We value their opinions higher than we value academics. So we've taken a sample group of great blokes who all have their own mental health journey. I mean, whether it be in sport or in life outside of sport, all the people coming on board with this campaign have got their own mental health story to tell. They've all got some form of link to people in service, and it's a tool. And I would never say this to their face, but these celebrities, great people, but they are a tool to attract the attention of the general public. And we bring them together, and through these celebrities, legends as they are, we can reach a far greater audience. And we can get the general public who otherwise had no attachments to the defence or veteran community, and we can get them excited about a campaign or about a day that they will then go and take a moment to pause and remember the sacrifices made by people from past generations to give us the freedoms we've got right now. And I know the irony, right, is that people are going to sit at home and go, I've been in lockdown for 6 months, and we get it. Like, everybody's going through it, and it sucks. This campaign runs through Mental Health Week, it runs through Veterans Health Week, and it culminates on Remembrance Day. I mean, fingers crossed the politicians can do the right thing and open the country up so that people can connect with their mates on Remembrance Day. But to answer your question, the reason why we're getting these legends and these sporting stars involved in this campaign, multi-layered. A, they've got a story. B, they're connected to military. But C, and the big one, is they can reach a massive audience within Australia to excite people to remember on Remembrance Day.
Yeah, that point really resonates with me, that they are connected with people who have served. And you see on Remembrance Day, you know, you get your little miniatures made up for your daughters and your kids, and people wear your granddad's medals, and everybody it's about remembering the day. And I suppose this brings me into my next point is ownership of the day. Is the day owned? Who owns the day? Can people own a day? And where does that sit with you, mate?
Mate, there is probably a large group of people who could claim ownership over the day, but they're not alive anymore. They were all fighting in the war in 1918. And if any one of them rose from the grave and said, mate, leave Remembrance Day alone, I would be the first one to say, mate, 100%. The problem is there is people alive today that for their own reasons and for their own, I can only say ego, they want the whole world to conform to their way of thinking. And I get it. I appreciate that. The problem is if we stick to that way of thinking, Remembrance Day's gone. Less than a decade, it's gone. If we want to say this is just a day for military members, unfortunately, the military doesn't really stop and do much for it unless we give them a reason to. It's 2021. Everyone thinks they own the rights to everything out there in the ether, on the internet. And people are just going to get grumpy. I mean, you can't please everyone, but from the audience that we're working with, the age demographic that we're working with, they can understand it and they get it. And I mean, like I was saying to people today, I've spoken to an American and 2 Pommy soldiers in the last 48 hours. They came to Australia and were blown away by the fact that no one does anything on the 11th of November. So this is a big day. Different countries celebrate in different ways. We know the Americans have Veterans Day, and that for them is a massive piss up. It's very similar to what we do on Anzac Day, but they do it on the 11th of November. But these three people that had come to Australia and either served in our military or just came over here as veterans were shocked at how little the country knew about Remembrance Day and how few people actually paused to remember on the 11th.
This looks like a great opportunity to collaborate and to unify the veteran space and ESOs. Have you had much success unifying them?
I don't know. Yeah, unifying. I don't know if I'd use that word, but bringing them together, definitely. Everyone's got their own task, mission, mindset. Each ESO has their own goals and their own kind of welfare pieces that they pull together. But the one thing that all ex-service organisations or ESOs can understand is the fact that being a newer or smaller ex-service organisation in the current climate is a difficult thing to A, get your message out there, B, to get funding behind you to do the valuable work that you're doing. And the easiest way to do that is to work together so that we can pick 1 or 2 times of the year to engage the public. Yes, raise money. I mean, there is some pushback on the fact that there is a fundraiser that is leading up to Remembrance Day. And I get that too. But there is ex-service organisations out there doing jobs that I wouldn't say government should be doing, but they're doing jobs that must be done, and they can't do it for free. And we've had a lot of success with the younger, more contemporary, but more innovative, I'd say, ex-service organisations. Shout out to Wandering Warriors from the boys in Perth. They're partnering on this campaign. Same with Cam's Cause on the East Coast. There's a handful. I'm probably going to miss a bunch. Veteran Sport Australia's in. Veteran Grappling up north. They're actually popping up all over Australia. They're behind us. Like I said, a lot of the smaller, newer ESOs are rallying behind this because we understand the need for collaboration. For decades, there's been so much infighting in the ESO community. Unfortunately, coming from the bigger, older organisations, wanting to be the sole pillar of support in the ex-service organisation space, they don't want to work with us at the moment. I mean, I think we're slowly chipping away and making them understand the need to collaborate and the need for ESOs to work together. I think this day is the perfect day to do it too. If at any time we can put all of our issues aside and work together for a greater good, a Remembrance Day campaign seems to be the perfect time to do it.
Mate, great. I really appreciate you coming on and breaking down that. What is Remembrance Day? What is the current real problem, warts and all, of Remembrance Day? And a look at Swiss 8's innovative solution to unify or to collaborate and reinvigorate the day. Mate, I just want to say one last thing, just to the people who aren't within the veteran-centric or social circles. Mate, I have a really good mate who decided to get married on Anzac Day because it was a public holiday. It was a day off, right? So he's like, oh, well, no one else does anything. I don't even know what Anzac Day is about. I'm just going to get married. Now, his wife also didn't know what Anzac Day was about. And their whole family and guest list were like, yeah, sure. I don't see a problem with it. And it wasn't until he then knew a soldier. Then he's like, oh, is that bad? Like, yeah, it's pretty bad to get married on. This is honestly, once you step 1 degree of separation away from a serving soldier, or when you open your particular social circle, not from just your family, but one out, then you get the true litmus of what the gravity of losing the Remembrance Day is about.
Yeah, mate, you do. And I mean, that's slightly off topic from what you're talking about, but there is organisations that look after cops. There's organisations that look after fireys. Ambos, they're all coming forward going, can we be a part of this campaign? And that, again, cops some heat from people who don't really understand the true meaning of it. None of them are coming forward saying, is it cool if we make this day about us? Like, not one of them. Every single one of them is coming forward going, this is a mental health campaign, and they get it, mate. They get first responders have very limited to no resources out there to support them in their mental health journeys. But they want to pause and remember, and they want to reinvigorate Remembrance Day, not so they can make it a day about them, but so that their community can share and grab the general public of Australia to make sure Remembrance Day never disappears. And yeah, I know that has absolutely nothing to do with having weddings on Anzac Day, but it came, something you said brought it to the front of mind. And I think that is the attitude we need to have. If we can get the whole veteran community, the whole defence community, first responders, sporting professionals, sporting clubs, pushing out this messaging to the entire country, we will get to the point where no one chooses to have a wedding on Anzac Day or Remembrance Day because they are well aware that they are sacred days.
Absolutely, mate. Thanks very much. Thanks for coming on, guys. If you have a more comprehensive history than the article that we're going to put up on the show notes, make sure you send us the link. And if you have a different opinion, not an echo chamber, love to hear your comments on it. Hope that clarified the situation. Stay tuned till the next episode. Cheers, mate.